Hello, everyone. So the time has come. It is now the end of the year, and it is time to do my 30 favorite songs of the year ranking video. I'm really excited to make this video as I've always loved the opportunity to finally get to talk about certain songs that I never got the chance to or had the motivation to film a separate video for on this channel throughout the year. So I get to touch on a lot of artists that I don't normally touch on. And keep in mind, I choose to do each year a best songs of the year instead of a best albums of the year video, largely because I have a harder time pinpointing what albums as a whole I really like from a year than I do just like individual songs. And I feel like I like the sort of variety I get more from talking about individual songs than I do, albums as a whole and ranking them. It's just a lot harder for me to rank. It's hard for me to rank, obviously, the best songs of the year, usually the top 10, like the particular order sort of situation. It's very hard for me to place. So take that with you as you watch this video because I really had a hard time placing like particularly the ranking for the top 10. Hopefully, when you're watching this video, hopefully there aren't any, moments where there's no audio for these little clips I'm showing of the songs. Unfortunately, given the copyright situation, I don't know what songs are going to get claimed. And more importantly, the big issue, what songs are going to have their audio removed and make my video blocked so that if I want it to be public, I have to completely erase the audio. So keep in mind, there's probably going to be at least one or two spots where I'd wish there was audio playing, but there isn't. And I just have to take what I can get with this because I want to make the video this way. It's just really unfortunate that copyright laws are so draconian these days that you can't even play 10 seconds of a song under fair use and get your video, okayed by YouTube. I'm not trying to make money off of this. I'm just trying to, put these out there and not have the video be blocked in every single country. So that being said, hopefully you'll be able to hear audio for all of these songs, but I highly doubt all 30 will clear. That being said, I also want to give a shout out to the honorable mentions, songs that didn't quite make my top 30. I will leave a comment in the description so you can look down there. There'll be 10 songs that I also felt like deserved a shout out. And also, before I begin, this is of course my personal opinion, my taste. The music I tend to listen to, it's a lot more pop oriented. It's a lot more female oriented. So there's a lot more female artists represented than there are male artists. Not so much of the, heavy rock and R&B hip hop side of things. Just to be clear that if you're familiar with my channel, you know the drill. Okay, so another thing before I dive into this list, let's talk about 2020 in overview. This year has been obviously very trying for all of us. And understandably, this year has not been probably quite what we all expected in terms of what music was delivered. I am confident that there are probably tons of projects that got delayed that didn't come out this year that were supposed to because of the pandemic. That being said, I'm actually really surprised how many projects did end up coming out this year. Back in March, it wasn't looking really good. We were getting a lot of big projects delayed indefinitely, some of them, and it was really hard to know when things were going to be normal again. It still is, to be honest with you. But, there's a bit more of a light at the end of the tunnel now. And that really put music lovers in a bit of a tight spot. It was very upsetting, for instance, when Lady Gaga delayed Chromatica. We all remember that. And several other big projects that some of them have still not even come out, though, most of them have by this point. And a lot of them got delayed to the fall. The good news for the music industry is that unlike the movie industry, which seems to be in a real state right now, like it's not looking really good, the music industry seems to be surviving, although that definition of surviving, I don't know how much the artist would agree with that, but as far as record labels are concerned, they're probably doing okay. The big labels are obviously going to be doing okay regardless. And there's at least a confidence, I think, in a lot of artists just putting out music, even if they can't do the traditional promotion tour, they can find other ways to do it. We had a lot of artists embrace virtual promotion this year, virtual concerts. That became much more of a thing that I think a lot of artists were realizing was not something to be so afraid of. Don't push back the art, especially when you don't know exactly when it's going to be safe for promotion as usual and for concerts as usual to go ahead. So 2020, I was really shocked with the wealth of music we got this year, and a lot of it pretty good. Now, a lot of people are saying that 2020 was an exemplary year for music, even in the pop music world, which has been really suffering in the last half of this decade in particular. And I would agree to a certain extent. However, I am still a little underwhelmed. I still feel like overall 2020 was a bit of a filler year for me, in just the fact that a lot of the big artists that I really love obviously didn't put out music this year. That might not have had anything to do with the pandemic, but that just happened to be the way it was. So it's always going to make this year a little bit less exciting for me. But I do think that this was definitely a year where I discovered a lot of new artists that really came out of the woodwork and it really impressed me. So I really like how year by year, when I do these year-end lists, there's like at least 5 to 10 artists in each list that I'd never heard of the year before. And that's a good sign, because I always want to expand my taste. And I tend to find that I'm a little prudish in trying to find new artists. I'm always like, no, I just like what I like. And it's so much to look for new stuff. And I get overwhelmed very easily by that. But I'm really trying to, explore new horizons. So hopefully that's reflected in this list. And I hope you enjoy. So let's begin with song number 30.
I beat it like a dead horse, I beat it like a drum. Overstayed with you too long, skipping like a record, I sang along.
I ultimately decided to put this song at the back end of this list because Hayley Williams' project, Petals for Armor, this is the front woman from Paramore, the band that's been around for 15 years. She finally decided to go solo, and I think it largely did pay off. I'm actually surprised that Pitchfork, I read their top 100 songs of the year list before making this video, and I was actually really shocked that Hayley Williams did not have a single track on that list. And so that's a big snub, because I was not surprised she was snubbed by the Grammys. The Grammys are, what they are. But Pitchfork snubbing Hayley is, I think, quite criminal. And Dead Horse actually was not a song that I initially thought was going to make this list. But in putting it together, I knew there was going to be at least 2 songs off of this record, Petals for Armor, that would deserve to be in the top 30. And this was the one that I kind of actually sort of last minute decided was actually good enough for it. Because it's just so undeniably fun, catchy, it's campy, it's probably one of the most Paramore songs on this project. And that's not necessarily saying that I don't like when Hayley's not in the Paramore vein. I actually really love that. But there's something so undeniable about the melody of this song, about the attitude that this song has, the music video, that the song was just so stuck in my head all year, and it really actually found its way under my skin to be a song I just couldn't get enough of. So I had to give it a shout out.
Give me another chance. Give me another chance. Give me another chance.
At number 29, we have the Honduran-American singer Lorelei Rodriguez, who goes by the stage name of Empress of. Her sophomore album, I Am Your Empress Of, came out this past spring, and the big single off of this record, Give Me Another Chance, just something I stumbled upon this year around when it came out, really captivated me from the instant I heard that hook. There's a really interesting circular rhythmic section that carries the tempo of this track that makes the repetitive nature of the lyrics very, very much more than just tolerable, I think quite catchy. It's a really, I think, smart way of turning a song that's not really doing a whole lot melodically, which has got a bit more of an R&B tinge to it, into something quite memorable and captivating. It's at once in your face and at once also just kind of very in its own subtle groove. And so it finds this interesting balance that I think is very arresting to the listener. Coming in at number 28, Kylie Minogue, her song Magic. Kylie Minogue chose to take us back to the glittery, euphoric era of disco. She was not the only artist to do that this year. A lot of people have said disco is having quite a resurgence in pop music, thanks to artists like Dua Lipa and The Weeknd. But, I don't think disco ever fully left. What Kylie gave us this year was probably the closest we were going to get to Kylie's Confessions on a Dance Floor. And I think it really paid off. Compared to Kylie's more recent albums, this album had some real standouts. Magic is just so unapologetically fun pop confection. With its shimmery synth keyboards, its horn section that comes in to help keep the groove going. It had something infectious that I couldn't walk away from. Kylie is once again proving that she is not going anywhere in the world of pop.
Just turn them into reasons and excuses. Always down, I'm not up. This is just my running luck to fill my time.
At number 27, Grimes' Delete Forever. Stripping everything back for Grimes is not something I think any of us expect. Hearing just a lot more acoustic instruments coming through in the mix, some sort of mandolins and some strings, and some very interesting synth work really keeps this song at a level that feels, it's like a complete full vibe and package that makes you kind of forget about how weighted down lyrical content of this song really is, as it is an ode to all of the lives and people she's known who have lost their lives to opioid addiction overdose. And I think this is one of the only songs on the Miss Anthropocene, her latest album, that she entirely wrote and produced herself. So it's just got this real DIY at-home feel. A lot of people have aptly described it as a ballad for the end of the world. And also, I just have to be honest, there's something so Animal Crossing about her vocals. I've been really into that game, and I keep envisioning like Grimes' music as like the songs that a lot of these Animal Crossing villagers would sing, particularly KK Slider. And I found a really hilarious image of KK Slider's interpretation of Miss Anthropocene's album artwork. So, because her vocals are very chipmunk and they're very high-pitched, a lot like the Animal Crossing villagers' vocals, I imagine some of those very cute cherubic villagers singing this song very, like, mournfully.
We keep it up to keep the devil at bay, but it always falls way too soon. I spread it like strawberries.
26, Fiona Apple, Heavy Balloon. I knew that there needed to be more than one song off of this record in my top 30, and I ultimately settled on this one, which was a bit of, again, a similar situation to Haley, a last-minute addition. Heavy Balloon, I don't think is a song that a lot of people are talking about much from this record, which I find very shocking. But also, since I am new to Fiona's music as of 2020, I do think that it really grabs me in the witchy, in-your-face, mantra-like riff that she is going off of here with the poetry. It's got something so captivating that I suppose maybe Fiona fans of old might be more used to, and maybe feel like this is a bit more redundant from things she's already done, as this song is very percussive. It's definitely a bit arrhythmic in parts. It's definitely a little all over the place and haphazard, but that's something that I'm gathering is a staple of her music. And even though melodically it's not a very strong, which might make this inclusion on my list a little confusing to some of you, the pure raw emotion that comes through speaking about depression, the way she describes it in that track, I've never heard another artist capture in such a raw and unfiltered way. And so I couldn't escape the magnetism of the earthy, dirt under your nails angst that this song gives off.
Turn, yeah, the table got to turn. It's a boomerang booming back. Yeah, you laid an egg, now it's about to hatch.
At number 25, Janelle Monáe, Turntables. This song was made for the Amazon Prime movie All In: The Fight for Democracy, be about voter registration coming up on the, of course, big pivotal 2020 election this year, which thankfully the tables did turn. This song came out in September, so it was used as sort of like a hype song for that hopeful outcome we all wanted. And listening to it in the months preceding the election, it was sort of one of those things where you were just getting a lot of flashbacks to 2016 and remembering how there were a lot of artists who put out, songs very much about claiming democracy and, turning up to vote and overthrowing oppression. And then you saw what happened. And so it's with a pinch of salt that I embrace this song. But thankfully now listening to it, I can fully take that weight off my shoulders in knowing that the job that we needed to do today did get done. For fans of Janelle Monáe, this is definitely obviously something that's right up her alley. It's got a classic gospel-tinged funk mixed with a bit of rock and roll, everything you would expect and love from a Janelle Monáe track. And it really gets you amped up. It really gets you excited for the big change that we so desperately needed this year. The one real big positive thing that came out of 2020.
We go blow up like chocolate, yeah. Go back, go back, go back, go back, go back. We are carrier, yeah. Go back, go back, go back, go back.
And number 24, probably one of the most left field additions to this list, Tiwa Savage, the Nigerian singer who participated in the UK version of The X Factor in the 2000s, released her third studio album this year titled Celia, an album that is all about inspiring women, particularly in the African American population. The track Koroba translates to bucket in Nigerian, or basket, and she uses that as a metaphor to describe how women have been, unfortunately, particularly in Nigeria, used as, one can imagine, have been taken advantage of in positions where men in more powerful positions have taken advantage of women and stolen from them, have abused them. She's calling out these rich, powerful men and politicians who will take advantage of these younger women, and the women will get all the blame and be ostracized by society, and often, have so much of their livelihoods upended and ruined because of one brief mistaken encounter. And she's trying to finally shift the focus and the narrative and place these women in a position of power, saying, take your money, take your bucket, and take back your power from these men who have corrupted, and use this system to constantly feed into corruption and abuse. The rhythmic Afrobeat hip-hop style of this track is something that I really have an affinity for, and so it was just something that really transports you into that time and place with such masterful production.
If I give the opportunity to you, then would you blow it? If I was the greatest thing to happen to you, would you know it?
At number 23, a song that should have been a big hit and a big single this year for the pop superstar Selena Gomez, Vulnerable, off of her album Rare, which came out back all the way at the beginning of January, which feels like eons ago, way pre-pandemic to 2020. I know it definitely feels like songs from that era feel like so long ago. And this is a track, it's very dreamlike, very synth pop, a little bit of a tropical house flair. It's very moody. It's just got such a cathartic flair in the way she admits to the fact that she will fully embrace her weakness in a way that she always ran away from, and that she realizes is probably her strongest asset, transforming the bitterness into a feeling of fulfillment. You can really hear how that's building up for her. And I think that there is a sense in Selena's, understated vocals here that of course are heavily processed. Again, I'm not coming and saying Selena's an excellent vocalist here, but what she's given with the produced track that she is on, it's just pure electro pop magic. And it really sells the earnest plea for validation in oneself to overcome the insecurities someone might feel, something that come up when you're pursuing relationships that constantly fall on your face. This song is truly addictive, as many reviewers have aptly pointed out, and yet I am not seeing it on any of these year-end lists. Tisk tisk.
Rage is a quiet thing. You think that you tame.
Okay, so Hayley Williams, I said there would be another song off of Petals for Armor, and that will be at place number 22, the lead single, Simmer. This song is getting a lot of critical acclaim as it is so understated, it's so unique and left field from anything that I think we expected Hayley to give us leading off of a solo record. Rage is a quiet thing. Oh, you think that you've tamed it, but it is just lying in wait. Truer words cannot encapsulate this Taylor York produced song on restraint, trying to find a way to hold yourself back, hold those high emotional states that you can find yourself in check. And it intros us into a record fraught with that kind of pent-up angsty emotion that Hayley is delivering at once very mellifluously in these spaced-out acoustic guitar moments, and at the same time in a very juddery kind of Radiohead reminiscent schizophrenic beat structure. It's a song that really takes a little bit of time to sink in and to grow on you, but it's one that will really create a huge impact over time.
Come and see now.
You're free, free to breathe again. So at number 21, I really wanted to give a shout out to Kai, or his real name, Kyle Carlquist. He's based out in Phoenix, Arizona now, but he's from the Midwest, and he makes really, really captivating synth pop, dreamwave, electronic music. And his song Sunrise off of his EP this summer called Breathe Again, I think is the thesis statement for the project. That you will see another dawn and learn to breathe again, less encumbered by your demons and darkness as you fight through the darkest night of your soul. There's something about the ambient quality mixed with the very, very gothic piano that is so resolute, that is so full of hope and darkness at the same time, and his gorgeous, gorgeous vocals that just carry this song off into the sunrise and really transported me away from my troubles in 2020. I highly recommend you check out his music. A very unknown independent artist that I really want to give a little bit of a shout out to here.
She just said, is it true? Is it true? Tell me now. It's a promise I can't make and I won't.
So at number 20, electronic artist Tame Impala comes in with the track Is It True off of his newest album, The Slow Rush. This was an artist that I knew I needed to come back and listen to with his new project before I formed my top 30 video, because Tame Impala is an artist that a lot of reviewers talk about as being one of the greats. And I've heard a couple songs of his over the years, but he's an artist that I never fully got into for whatever reason. And so I needed to fully step into the world of his newest album to appreciate what songs were really resonating the most. And the song that stuck out to me was Is It True? Mainly because of the undeniable catchiness of it. It has this Daft Punk reminiscent echoing synth breakdown. And that is something that I think really pivots the whole song into a direction that it transcends it above, I think, a lot of the mire you hear in some repetitive 2020 era of electronic dance music today. And so I like that blend that's a bit of old with new, and it really carries this infectious energy that will just have you not wanting the song to end. So at number 19, Aurora, the Norwegian songstress who I infuse about on this channel constantly, did drop, and it's actually really sad that I completely forgot about it until I was making this list, but she did drop this gorgeous acoustic-laden song called Exist for Love that was, I presume, meant to be ushering in a new era for her, and her fourth studio album, which I'm still hopeful will be coming to us in 2021. We haven't gotten really any other info along with the release of this song, besides a gorgeous music video set in a 1920s kind of aesthetic. And this song is so much of that pearl within an oyster. And that feeling of what love really can, and all the beauty that exists within love, and finding that in places you might not have expected. And being in that journey, looking for it constantly and not letting it get you down. It's something that I need to learn quite often again and again in my life. Aurora has never sounded sweeter than on this track, and it's something that I do wonder, where directionally she will be heading, as I do want that earthier, grungier undertone to her music to still be there, but I could so see her kind of going into a more zenned out, ethereal goddess era that I would love to see from her. And so it'll be interesting to see how she marries maybe those two sides, the light and the dark, with her music going forward. At number 18, the opening track off of Lady Gaga's electropop roller coaster that is Chromatica. Now, if you watch my Chromatica review, you will know that I was actually quite disappointed by this record upon first listen. I felt that in comparison to some of her great albums like Born This Way, that there wasn't actually enough of a roller coaster on this record, that we started to hit a bit of an autopilot when it came to the 4-on-the-floor backing beat structure that we were getting with some of these tracks. Well, Alice is a song that, although maybe might be a little bit more traditional in terms of the beat structure for something we've come to expect from Lady Gaga when she embraces club dance music, The lyrical and vocal content really take this song to heights far above, I think, much of the rest of what we get on this record. Referencing Alice in Wonderland, she sings about wanting to ascend to that higher place that can give her the, freedom to be fully who she is. And of course, I think that people would allude that to being the planet or the era of Chromatica itself, which is these bright, vibrant pastel pinks and cyberpunk bubblegum futurism. And I think that, Alice is probably the most propelling song on the record for that. It's the song that really lifts off. One of the few songs that really takes off for me and takes me to the planet, in reference to another Lady Gaga song. And so I cannot go this video without giving it a shout out. And I'm really upset to see that a lot of people are sleeping on this track when they're talking about top songs from Chromatica, and of course from the entire year. I will always be a sucker for Gaga's very high soprano voice mixed with a really pulsating rhythmic dance floor beat.
Yeah, I know what this is.
You got a right to your own opinion, but when it comes to the world we live in, isn't it time that we start rebuilding?
Okay, so at number 17, Mariah Carey gave us a B-sides and From the Archives record in 2020. The Rarities she released. The song that I'm talking about, Save the Day. The song is probably the only song on that record that is a little bit more modern entirely in its conception, but it's a song that she's been sitting on for quite some time, at least a decade. She decided to sample the iconic 90s rapper Lauryn Hill in her hit Killing Me Softly in the Fugees when she was part of that band, to give her a feature to ride along with this propelling R&B, glittery piano pop extravaganza that Mariah is serving us. I don't think the 90s could be any more channeled than it is in this track, and that's why it sounds so much like something she would have made back then. She's really trying to give a tribute to those 90s R&B styled vocalists of that era. There's that iconic whistle tone that she breaks out towards the end, which we all live for. And I'm just blown away by how much I love Mariah Carey's single in 2020. It's just something so fresh, but yet so classic. Carry on the legacy of Mariah Carey's style of R&B to the next generation. And of course, full of empowerment in the lyrical content.
The sunrise, 'cause I was born to the night. In the night, I survived.
American singer Ava Max, with a song called Born to the Night, comes in at spot number 16. This is a real guilty pleasure track of mine. Her newest album and her long-awaited debut album, Heaven and Hell, has several songs that came out quite a while ago. She's an artist that's always been on the periphery of people talking about on Twitter, particularly people who are longing for that Lady Gaga unapologetic disco pop that, she seemed to abandon before she came back to it for Chromatica. Ava Max seems to be serving that pop princess, artificiality in such full force on this record. And there's nothing wrong with that. And Born to the Night is a slice of dream pop that really takes you somewhere. The song Major Tom by Peter Schilling is used as a sample for the melodic content for a lot of the verses. And it took me a while to pick on that, but I was like, I know this melody, it's familiar. And I love that track because it's such a preparing to launch moment where you know that you're going to soar and fly high in the chorus. An ode to nocturnal living, something I'm far too familiar with these days. In the night I survive, all the poison, the pleasure, the highs, I was born to the night. Unapologetically dancing to In the Wee Hours of the Night with abandon.
I feel the wind as you run out the door. It's only now I see the pattern.
Halfway there, at number 15, Delta Goodrem, the Aussie pop star, serves us a classic live take, full-on instrumental track, Solid Gold, which I wanted to include on this list for how wholesome it was. The melody in the chorus where she sings gold and she does the octave jump and the kind of weird vocal hold on that note that can get a little shouty, that might not be my favorite part of this track. But everything else about the movement and instrumental, the chords, the up-tempo, in-your-face delivery, it's so fresh, it's so invigorating. It's everything I love about Delta's style of pop, and it gives it a a euphoric feel. You just can't help but feel elevated listening to this track. And it's supposedly coming off of an album that'll be released hopefully next year called Bridge Over Troubled Dreams. And so we are hopefully going to be getting a lot more of this kind of music because she wants this album to be very much live take. So like just recording her with the band in the studio and not so much of the finishing touches afterward. And so it'll be a very band sounding record. And I think that she really channels that in this song so wonderfully.
I never knew I had it in me to dance anymore. But goddamn, you got me in love again. Show me the heavens.
So, Dula Peep,
Her name's Dua Lipa,
Dula, yeah.
but you call her Dula Peep.
Dula Peepa, Dula.
Her name's Dua Lipa, but you call her Dula Peep.
At number 14, I had to put a Dua Lipa track on here. Every single gay man is in love with this album. Future Nostalgia. Is it a tad overrated? Yes. I would argue that Love Again really, I think, has the most understated staying power of the record. Tracks like Physical, they're great. They are so 80s. They are so, trying to be this next big moment that they become they just get overburdened with cheese for me. There's something so cheesy about some of those tracks, so overdone, so overproduced, that I find myself, tuning it out. Love Again is a little bit more subtle. It's a little bit more understated, but it is just as glossy. It is just as polished. It is just as disco and just as danceable. And so I haven't seen, like a lot of the tracks on this list, so much love for this song, but I could have easily seen it been a huge single and carrying the airwaves for the next 5 years, because she really gives ABBA a run for their money with this delectable track.
My loose recollection of a falling. I barely remember who I failed.
At number 13, Smiling by Alanis Morissette, off of her album Such Pretty Forks in the Road. We hadn't heard an Alanis Morissette album in 8 years. And just like Fiona Apple, 2020 did give us some of these new projects from artists we've been waiting for quite some time. Now, I'll again confess that Alanis is an artist that I still have to do a lot more deep diving into in her back catalog. But listening to her newest record, a couple people were wondering what I thought when that album came out, and I didn't end up reviewing it. But I did want to make sure I gave a shout out to one of my favorite songs, which was one of the singles, Smiling. There is some truly amazing wordplay on this track. I mean, absolutely blown away. I know Alanis is a very talented lyricist, singing about braving the darkest of darks in terms of what one can go through. Me, the notorious bottom dweller, me, the ceilingless brave explorer, lured to the ends of overwhelm. This is my first wave of the white flag. This is the sound of me hitting bottom. This my surrender, if that's what I call it, in the anatomy of my crash. Such pretty forks in the road, on this continuum I've been bouncing, like flashing promise before my eyes. And I keep on smiling, keep on moving, can't stand still. It's an ode to ADHD people everywhere. I love Alanis talking about how, she would go to therapists and she'd explain all of these dark, challenging, complex things that she'd be pondering in her head. And yet she'd still have a smile or a sense of humor about the way she would bring it out. And I've noticed that about myself too. It's like you have such dark things brewing beneath the surface, and yet you present such a cheery, glittery facade. Alanis talks about the fires that happened in 2018 in Malibu, her dog dying around the same time, and still wanting to show up and put on a brave face when you're just crumbling inside. So this song, it shows just beautifully complex relationship between fragility and strength that one can have within one's soul at any given moment in this chaotic environment we call life. Masterfully made.
I'm ready, rain on me. Drop, but at least I'm alive. Rain on me, rain on me, rain.
Okay, well, this song goes without saying. I knew that this song was going to be on my top 30. It's at top spot number 12. Rain on Me, the collab that all the gays always wanted with Ariana Grande off of Chromatica, the big single. Of course this song deserves to be there. I mean, it's just so well served for what it needs to do, which is, give you reason for living on the dance floor. And that's something that we really wanted from Lady Gaga this era. And it's something she delivered to us, and Ariana really helped embellish in a way that will keep us dancing for many years to come, especially in a year that's been quite trying for so many of us.
I'm blinded by the lights. No, I can't sleep until I feel your touch. I said.
And number 11, Abel, or better known as The Weeknd, the R&B new Michael Jackson, as a lot of people I think would want to call him, really took over 2020 with his album After Hours. I think it was something no one saw coming as being such a monumental hit, and so critically acclaimed, and yet so critically snubbed when it came to the Grammy nominations. Now, I've read into what some of the conspiracies around that haul being that Abel was sidelined by the Grammys due to some sort of contractual breach that he made having to do with the fact that he is going to be performing at the 2021 Super Bowl the following or the week before or the week following the Grammys performances, which supposedly is against the Grammys rules, even though Katy Perry did that in 2015 and a couple other artists have done that before. So I don't quite understand what the Grammys are talking about there. But basically, the Grammys disinvited him for some odd reason having to do with the Super Bowl performance or something. So that explains his glaring omission, especially with his critically lauded track, Blinding Lights, that everyone has been raving about, that's been on their airwaves nonstop this year. Luckily, I don't listen to the radio a lot, so I don't get songs like this too overtired in listening to, because I can imagine if I listened to the radio and I heard this song on and on and on and on and on, I would probably be very tired of it by now. But it's a song I come back to only in spare moments in playlists, and it just always is a serve. Another track I wanted to give a shout out to that almost made this list was Save Your Tears. That song has a similar infectious pop energy that I really would have seen possibly switching out for this one, but I gave it to Blinding Lights just because of its, critical acclaim. You're not going to see almost any year-end list this year not include that song from anyone. All right, so here we come, the top 10.
I know that you're wrong for me. Gonna wish we never met on the day I leave. I brought you down to
Angels Like You, Miley Cyrus. Boy, did you really take it home on this record, Plastic Hearts. I was not expecting this album to hit as hard as it did. So much of the music I feel Miley was born to make comes through on this track. This is also a song that gives me major breakout vibes for, late 2000s Miley, her teenage music. A lot of people shove it under the rug or have forgotten about it, but there were some epic power ballads that she would belt out. And Angels Like You sits right amongst those. And it gives this sort of catharsis that I did not know I needed from Miley and her vocals. She's been so sort of rough and ready with the way she presents her vocals in so many songs. She's not really trying to let herself be a little smoother, epic, Celine Dion-esque in terms of her melodies. And this is something that she tries to actually channel once again after having abandoned for many years in a track that is a beautiful ode to a crumbled relationship where you're realizing that you're entirely at fault on your end and that you can only hope that you didn't leave too much wreckage behind you. Boy, this song really speaks volumes to the emotional tumult that I think so many of us in our 20s might go through, having gone through a whirlwind of a relationship with someone. It just conjures up all the right emotions, and it has some killer guitars as well.
I'll meet you after dark. Show me the places where the others gave you scars.
Okay, so at number 9, this might be a bit of a surprise to you if you just watched my Evermore review. This is the most recent song to be included on this list. It only came out a few days ago. Taylor Swift put out her lead single, Willow, off of her surprise album, Evermore, just last week. Well, this is her second surprise album of the year, but we'll get to that. Well, Willow not only had its single version, but it also had an alternate version she put out called the Lonely Witch version, which is basically the same song, but it's even more stripped back. Willow was already a very stripped back acoustic guitar song, but she focuses a little bit more on piano, a little bit more on other instruments, the strings, the guitar being a little subtler in the mix to let her vocals actually stand out a bit better. Not that I feel like Willow, the regular version, is poorly mixed, but I just feel stylistically like choices were made to, especially in the chorus, let her vocals meld a little bit more in with the sinew of the actual instrumentation and orchestration, which is a choice that was made that I always felt was a little bit left more to be desired. And so what I love about the Lonely Witch version is that it elevates the elements of her vocals that needed to be spotlighted, giving the lyrics more depth, more weight, giving the entire song more of a atmosphere, because the instrumentation is now more accompanying rather than completely overpowering. And so I find that just very, very, there's just a charm and a magic, a fireside crackling woodsy vibe to a track that is probably the best song on that album for me, because I was, I was a little disappointed with Evermore. But don't worry, several songs are growing on me upon further listens. Track number 8.
Oh, me amount of time is hanging safe from harm. Steady your heart.
I really could not enthuse enough about this Faroese singer, Eivør, more. She is so massively underrated, and creates such haunting yet gritty industrial songs when she wants to. And she blends that so well on her newest album, Segel. Not entirely sure how to pronounce it. She really takes us on quite a roller coaster. Well, the devastatingly melancholic Hands, the most forlorn and drop-dead gorgeous ballad I have heard in quite some time. There's a chorus of her voice that comes and swells around as she pines to love and be loved in return, so closely and intimately, in a way that really makes you think about what love really means. I mean, there's something that just cuts right through the bone in the way she sings this track and reaches across such desolate landscapes for me, out of the abyss, and, is trying to find some sort of solace and comfort in the darkest hour. Wrap me in your hands. And it really lets you meditate on what that truly means. I highly recommend not only this song, but her new entire album and her back catalog.
Not like the regulars, the masquerade revelers.
So at number 7, we have Mirror Ball, a song off of Taylor's critically acclaimed surprise album Folklore that came out in July. This is not the only song from that album you are going to be seeing on this list. I had to include Mirror Ball as it is such a dreamlike, euphoric ballad from her. It's soft, it's sweet, it's a lot of everything, and it's something I think none of us expected Taylor Swift to sound like in 2020. It's like we're viewing Taylor through a kaleidoscope of hazy images, refracted in prisms. She's letting her voice be overlaid and just chorally overwhelm you on this track in such a soothing way that we've never heard from her before. Jack Antonoff, I really have to hand it to him on this one, because I'm not always a big fan of tracks he produces for Taylor, but the minimalist production on this one really stands out, really does the job. This song oozes nostalgia as well. Dreamy pop country is probably the best way to describe the genre.
Time is ripe for cutting through the illusions we.
At number 6, we have a ballad that cuts really, really talk about cutting to the bone. This one cuts to, like the title, Bones of Abandoned Futures. This one cuts to the very marrow and essence of your being. Johanna Warren is an Oregon-based artist who I have been following for several years now. She makes folk pop that is extremely ethereal and esoteric and speaks to the turmoils of introspection like nothing else. I mean, she is such a wordsmith with her vocals to match. Bones of Abandoned Futures, I mean, I could just let the lyrics speak for themselves. The time is ripe for killing the dream that never came true. The time is ripe for cutting through the illusions we've been clinging to. The time is ripe for the slaughter and letting the blood run freely. Expel from my body the putrid mess inside me and call back my magic to me. This song is like a prayer to tell yourself to purge. something that, you know, in all elements of life we have to periodically go through, but we tend to try and avoid and not draw attention to. And this song is a devotional promise to fix the underlying cuts and hurts and to address those wounds in a way that I've never heard quite delivered in such a raw and powerful way before. And so no lyrics had spoken quite so directly to me, I think I'd heard for quite some time. And I knew instantly that this was going to be the it song of the year for me when it came to like the emotional impact that it had, mixed with a gorgeous melancholic melody that will really seep into your bones as well. Gorgeous tepid instrumental that follows with the piano. I mean, it just hovers in the air with such presence. Okay, Fiona Apple, her intro track, track number 1 off of Fetch the Bolt Cutters, I Want You to Love Me. I'm really glad to see this song on Pitchfork's 100 Best Songs of the Year list because a lot of people are giving this spot to Shamika. Shamika is a wonderful track, that's track 2, but I didn't really find that track to be so emotionally captivating or sonically as interesting as what this song offers. This song is furious, this song is subtle, this song is delicate, this song is elegant, chaotic. It's so much all at once. And a lot of that is an ode to the wonderful whirlwind of a piano that she serves that is the backbone of this track. And there's this wonderful, I talk about it sort of like Snow White having an orgasm. There's this wonderful vocal breakdown she does towards the end of this track where the instrumental starts to really go a little bit berserk, but she, you know, pins this very, very pained vocal of hers, this very high-pitched vocal, in a way that I've never heard of an artist do before, and it's just absolutely, it's something else. And it's truly a high art form, in my opinion. I move with the trees in the breeze. I know that time is elastic, and I know when I go, all my particles disband and disperse, and I'll be back in the pulse, and I know none of this will matter in the long run, but I know a sound is still a sound around no one. And while I'm in this body, I want somebody to want, and I want what I want, and I want you to love me. Tying the macrocosmic to the microcosmic so effortlessly, pontificating the mysteries of the universe while expounding upon your dear diary pinings of romantic frustration. An ode as she sings to somebody she hasn't met yet, which is something that I am constantly pontificating in my own life, because I constantly feel like I'm in love with a fantasy of who my future partner would be, not really understanding that I need to separate that from the actual livid reality of the physical person I might meet, because that's so much more of what they are than what I'm focused on is so much more of what I'm projecting. And then all of a sudden this becomes so much larger than it is about a specific person. It so quickly becomes more about the universe and our relationship to it and spirituality than it is just about a specific person. And I think that that's what the sort of existential fraught nature of this song captures so wonderfully. And of course, like I said, that haphazard piano, at once grandiose and at once very clumsy, articulates along with her uneasy melody line to cross over into a territory that this was the first Fiona Apple song I ever actually fully heard when I listened to this album. And I mean, it just was the perfect intro into the wonders of her music. So I mean, maybe several years ago, I wouldn't have quite gotten it the same way I do now, but I am so glad that I get it now and that I'm into it now than I probably would have been when I was a little bit less into stuff like this. But this blew me away.
Please picture me in the trees. I hit my peak at 7.
At track number 4, we come back to Folklore. It was really hard to know, like, Mirrorball or 7, which one deserved to be ahead of the other. I ultimately decided to place 7 ahead of Mirrorball just because, as a sucker for bittersweet country melody, Taylor is so on point here with this melody construction that I have nothing else to say. And when I talk about Evermore and what I missed from that record and what I found disappointing, I have to point to songs like 7 off of Folklore in comparison. 7 is just so pleasing to the ear. It's so at home. It's so ethereally crafted and nostalgically crafted. It gives you all of the vibes of old Taylor mixed with alternative new Taylor that we could ever want married together. She talks about being 7 years old, and like I talk about in the review, this song feels like what being 7 years old feels like, or at least looking back at it in these fragmented, you know, Polaroid, Kodak, hazed over imagery of, you know, playing in the woods as a kid and that runaway escapism that is so fueling your dreams and imagination at that age. Channeling that is something that I always hope Taylor continues to do, and I just find everything about this song to be perfectly concocted.
Fire in my lungs, can't fight the devil on my tongue. Oh no, don't need to be loved by you. See my lips.
So at number 3, we have Midnight Sky, the triumphant brazen power pop anthem that Miley Cyrus gave us as the lead single off of her album Plastic Hearts. It's just amazing how much this song has grown on me over the past several months. And to be completely honest with you, I'm kind of giving this a dual spotlight because I also want to say that I was really vacillating on possibly instead including the Edge of Midnight Stevie Nicks remix that's also on this album, where Stevie Nicks comes in and sings Edge of 17 along with Miley singing this song, and they pair it off of each other. Both versions are so good, and I still am not sure which one I like more. As of this moment, I can't tell which one I'm going to, so I'm just going to give them both the spot. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I have nothing else to say beyond that. Like, this is that grungy Annie Lennox triumphant 80s, 90s power pop that Miley really sells. It's rock, it's pop, married together brilliantly to give everyone what they want out of what she can offer.
Two hands meant to shape the land just like a river does. Just like a river.
So, track number 2. It's pretty much a given that if UK artist Birdie puts out anything, anytime, that one of her songs is going to be in the top 5 of my year-end lists. I'm a bit of a Birdie stan. I'm going to be warning you. She only put out 4 songs this year, but, you know, considering we had not heard new music from her since March of 2016, this was a big deal. Her most recent EP, Piano Sketches, has 4 songs that are very beautiful, but the one that closes it out, Just Like a River Does, takes the cake for me. Joni Mitchell is clearing the way for Jasmine van den Bogaard because Birdie is deftly reinterpreting her iconic balladry in a way that feels so classic, like it's already been written before, but it hasn't. And it just sits so beautifully in the space that she creates for it lyrically, singing about romance like a river, using that metaphor in a simplistic but elegant way, just really soft, understated, beautiful, elegant, everything I come to expect about Birdie, and of course her vocals, which are some of the best I've ever heard from a female singer. It was a no-brainer from the instant I heard this track that it was going to be in my top 3. Okay, so at number 1, we have...
Vibe check. Nice girl. Clash. Fanatic. Puta. Russa.
Okay, I think you caught me there. I think I might have just done a little bit of trolling on you. I'm sorry, I had to. Trixie, Katya, I love you. Ding Dong was served. It's number 1 in some other alternate universe. Don't worry.
Sorry about it. Can't help it. I'm gay.
I'm listening.
So my real personal favorite best track of 2020 for me has to go to Billie Eilish with her single My Future.
I can't seem to focus, and you don't seem to notice I'm not here.
This is a perfect song. It's honestly too perfect. It kind of scares me. And what really scares me is how casually Billie dropped it and how young she is and how this, you know, is coming kind of soon after her most recent album. And she's already given us 2 absolutely amazing, well, technically 3, because she just put out a new track called Therefore I Am. I'm assuming these are all, because Everything I Wanted from 2019, let's not forget, that was top 10 material as well for 2019. But My Future is just so poignant. It is so speaking to something I've not heard a lot of artists sing about. especially younger artists like her. You have to remember that time of writing this, she's only 18 years old. She only just turned 19. This song is a love letter to your future self. And in a world full of finding, trying to find love through other people, I used to get exhausted by constantly hearing love songs. This was before I kind of got turned into romantically obsessed, boy crazy, desperate gay that I am today. I used to get really tired of hearing about boy drama in all of these songs and hearing about romance and chasing it. And I wanted to hear songs more about the relationship one has with oneself, because that is so crucial, so important, and so slept on in the way we discuss and talk about psychology today, and especially romance. And so in mainstream pop music. And so to hear Billie talk about wanting to sort of put aside romantic entanglements for several years to get to know herself more, to get to really build the person that she's always been in love with in herself and finally uncover that, that's something that's just really exciting to me. This is such a jazzy, Katie Lang kind of crooning, silky smooth melody that will transfix you upon listening. That, I mean, it just has everything about it, and it gets a nice little backing beat for part of it, which I think helps stick out a little bit. But ultimately, this song just really is just that statement sung in such a mellifluous way. And it's really got me scared. It's got me so excited of Billie's power in this department, because I just think that Billie is really an artist to watch now. It's quite interesting how, her debut album, it's great. I'm not going to debate that. But the stuff she's been putting out since is like something else. I mean, I don't know, but it's like 10 times better than what she had on her debut album. So if this is a sign of what's to come, then Billie Eilish will be my favorite artist by the end of, next year, most likely. So I'm in love with this song. That's all I have to that reason. But that's what my favorite songs, as you notice. All the ballads tend to go to the top of my lists. I tend to really have a spot for those. And the more emotional, the better. And the more beautiful the melody, the better. So there we go. Those are my favorite songs of 2020. Let me know in the comments what you agreed with, what you would have loved to have seen included. What are your top 10, top 15, top 20, top 30, top however many you want to share? What are your favorite songs of the year? And what are your least favorite songs of the year too? I'd be interested to hear that as well. Maybe I'll share some of the ones I was not so keen on, because I don't like to make a full video about that, because I don't want to listen to that stuff. But, it's still interesting to share. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope, like I said, the audio is all mostly there, if not all there. And when you're watching it, and let me know your thoughts. And thank you all so much for watching. Please give this video a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe for more content. A lot of the artists I touched on, their full albums that they put out this year, I did review. So you can check that out, particularly artists in this top 10. So you can check them out on my channel for more of my detailed thoughts on them. And I will see you all in the new year. Thank you all so much for watching. Have a happy holiday. Peace, love, and light. Bye.